I'm delighted to say that Mr. Mike Porky Parry is here once more in the studios with me, wearing what can only be described as the most horrendous pair of shorts that I've ever seen, personally. Very good morning to you.
And welcome to you, Mike, as well.
Thank you.
And thank you for that introduction.
I love the way you welcomed me to the show
yeah.
after I've already been here an hour.
Well, no, I was actually hitting back against your insulting introduction to me.
It's not insulting at all.
What is wrong with my shorts?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take a picture of them when we're in a break.
By all means,
and we'll get people to suggest what's wrong with them.
I think they're incredibly sartorial, actually, but you wouldn't know anything about sartorial because the size of your misshaped body is such that you can't get fashionable clothes.
Which is pretty good coming from you.
You can't get fashionable clothes, therefore you have clothes envy against somebody like me who has a bit of style and has been brought up properly to dress according to one's personality.
Right.
The way one feels, the confidence that one exudes with people around them. You know, with your hunched shoulders.
I would never come to work wearing shorts, I can tell you that for a start.
And your shuffling gait and your slobbery have no idea how to dress. Yeah, slobbery, yeah.
That sounds like a terrible insult.
Yeah.
But anyway, never mind about that. Let's talk about the most important issue of the day, which is, of course, the World Cup in Qatar. No way do I believe that it's actually going to go ahead. So much, if you drew up a list of the do's and don'ts and the good things and the bad things, so much now on the bad side. I just think FIFA are going to pull the plug on it.
Well, I don't know if they're going to pull the plug or not, but this story that you alluded to in the first hour of your show on the front of the Telegraph is incredibly important. France embroiled in Qatar World Cup scandal. Michel Platini under pressure to explain secret meeting with corrupt bid chief. I did the European Championships in Austria and Switzerland in 2008. Now, England weren't there. That's the one that that was Wally and the Brolly territory. Yeah. That's right. But I went along, did it anyway. And I met Platini in a hotel in Zurich. And I had quite a long chat with him for about 40 minutes over a cup of tea, in which he tried to emphasise, because the feeling was at the time he wasn't being over helpful to England in European competitions. There was all this, about should there be 4 England teams in the Champions League and all that. He spent 40 minutes telling me overwhelmingly he's not anti-English at all. But everything he's done since then has always given us the feeling that, he has issues with the way we run our game here, i.e., is there a bit of envy and jealousy about the amount of money we generate in this country, amongst a number of our clubs.
He's never happier, is he, when the final England club gets knocked out of the Champions League?
Absolutely. So, look, this story in the Telegraph, an excellent story, and you have to say that we haven't got the evidence that the Telegraph have got, but there's questions to be answered here. That, what you raised in the first hour about the connections between Mr. Platini, his connections with Qatar, the connections his family have now made with Qatar, the business that they're doing between each other, the role of the sudden massive injection of money into PSG in France, with France being so accommodating to some of the Qatari interests, is just an amazing story. And you wonder just how far and wide the tentacles of, because, we were talking to your guest there, you were talking to your guest who said Qatar's become a major power in the world. Well, we all know that power means money, money means power.
Well, I didn't know, for example, that between them, the sort of Abu Dhabi Sheikh Mansour's crowd and then the royal family there and also then the Qataris, they own the Chrysler building in New York, they own the Shard in this country. I didn't know that.
That's one of the most iconic buildings in the world.
Yeah.
The first thing we all do when we go to New York, apart from admiring the Empire State Building, is to say, golly, what's that beautiful building with the sort of...
With the griffins on the top.
That's right, the griffins on the top. And it's almost like petal flakes of metal, which adorn the top of the building. Beautiful building. And a lot of people say it is my favourite building in New York, above the Empire State. So it is an amazing story, Mike, and this will go on and on and on. I've read every word of the 11 pages in the Sunday Times.
Yeah.
And amazingly, as you quite rightly pointed out, I think they've got another 6 or 7 weeks of it to come. So it's going to be fascinating. And the best story in the Sunday Times was, without doubt, the amount of snubbery, for want of a better word, delivered to this country. For instance, in the run-up to the vote, when, everybody went out to... where was the vote taking place again?
It was in Switzerland, wasn't it?
It was in Switzerland. I can't remember now. But anyway,
it was, yeah.
Anyway, the point is, for months before, all of a sudden, the gentleman right at the heart of this, the Qatari...
Mohammed bin Hammam.
Yeah, government official. Although, let's make it clear, he was not part of their FIFA World Cup bid.
No.
This is what you have to make absolutely clear. So, FIFA can almost say we distance ourselves from it because the corruption allegations are against a man from Qatar, not a man involved in the Qatar bid.
Exactly.
He was like a government official looking after sport.
Well,
and
he
all
was
that.
like a fixer, as Alex McGibbon said.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But the point is that everybody knew he was a very important man in Qatar. And for months before the bid, and went there and everybody got votes and all that kind of stuff, he was turning down invitations to garden parties at the Buckingham Palace. He was turning down invitations to visit Downing Street and talk to David Cameron, our Prime Minister.
And all of that was kind of embarrassing, wasn't it?
It was terribly embarrassing. He was even turning down, visits to this country which involved members of the royal family and making out that he was not in Qatar when people like Cameron were passing through Qatar, going out to the Far East on business and all that. He wasn't available to see them. So, even then alarm bells must have been ringing about, hang on, are there influences around here that we don't know about, which are having some pressure to bear on the bid?
And you may have heard what Alex said, Alex McGibbon, former director of England's World Cup bid in 2006, where he said that, he went to see the Qataris and this guy was there, but it was the kind of the king who he spoke to, or the prince, whoever it was, who basically said, well, sorry, mate, Germany have already got in before you.
I worked with Alex at the FA in the late 90s, and I'm not specifically referring to this bid, but he had to travel the world when we were bidding for earlier competitions, and I would be talking now about probably the 2002 one, which ended up in Tokyo and Japan and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not implicating anybody, but he's got vast experience of getting involved in bids. And he told me in those days, and this is now the late 90s, he was competing against delegates from other countries, he didn't name them, who were walking into meetings with suitcases full of US dollar bills. I mean, he told me in those days that's the way it was.
He said to me, that people were joking that, why don't you just give everybody £1 million and you'll get the World Cup. And he said, some people weren't actually joking.
No, they weren't joking. He made that point. He was, he said in some meetings, he went in, he said, you seem to have brought your calling card. I.e., he didn't walk into, in those days, suitcases didn't have wheels on them, believe it or not. So these people were hauling these...
Well, presumably they had people carrying the suitcases for them.
Whatever, but they were hauling these suitcases into, suites of offices in far-flung climes and all that. And this was their calling card for a bid. But anyway, look, you've talked about this at length. And you're going to talk about it at more length. What I need to talk to you about, Mike, is a very important issue because...
more important than the World Cup in Qatar?
Well, it is more important than the World Cup because I'm very worried about the Native Americans, right?
What?
And the reason I'm very worried about the Native Americans is I made the mistake of tuning in on the telly to that dreadful film, The Lone Ranger, the other night. And
isn't Johnny Depp in that?
Well, Johnny Depp, isn't it? He's the guy who wears the crow on his head. But to my mind, he is the hero. The rest of them...
Tonto.
Are scumbags. Tonto is a hero. Now, what really, really got me is I looked at this film and then because I'm a student of American history and I know exactly what... No.
Well, that'll be your next quiz then, won't it?
No. Well,
American history.
If you want. Because I'm a student of American history, I know what happened in the Wild West. The way it's portrayed in The Lone Ranger was just not right. And the way...
Why?
Well, it wasn't right because... Whenever you and I used to go to a bar in New York, which is of Irish descent, all right?
Yeah.
He used to be, collecting the money for the cabbage and bacon evenings and all that, and you and I used to stay quite neutral in it all because we were from Britain and all that. But whenever I heard an American say, give Ireland back to the Irish, I used to turn around and say, why didn't you give America back to the Native American then? Give America back to what you used to call...
I don't remember you ever kind of championing the cause of the Native Americans.
I did. I used to say...
No, last time you talked on here, you didn't even refer to them as Native Americans. Well, you referred to them as the old-fashioned name, which we don't use anymore.
Well, people recognise them as the Red Indians because that's what they were called in the films you used to watch as a kid, the cowboys and the Indians, OK? They were the Red Indians. Now we call them Native Americans, not because... Well, A, they weren't red anyway, so I'm not sure why anyone called them Red Indians.
No, they were not red, that's true.
But B, because there were so many...
Maybe they were Liverpool fans.
Well, no, because there were so many different tribes, you had to really distinguish between the old Apaches and the Comanches and the Sioux and
Navajo
and the Cherokees, who were the real worst lot. Cherokees used to go around immersing your feet in animal fat and then setting fire to them. They weren't pleasant. No, honestly, they weren't.
No, there's a car named after them.
Yeah, that's right. They weren't very pleasant people at all. It's not no laughing matter.
Anyway,
if your feet on fire.
So you're championing the cause.
Well,
of
I just want, having watched this film, the Lone Ranger. It's a dreadful film, by the way.
Hang on, before you go, because we've got to go away for a minute. So hold that thought. Come back to me because Mike Parry is going to championing the cause of the Native Americans.
Of course I am.
He doesn't call them Red Indians anymore because they weren't red.
No,
this is Talk Sport. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham.
You're laughing at.
You're Mike Parry.
Yeah.
Well, because I'm thinking the good, the bad, and ugly, and the red would be the final one, really.
Well,
but obviously, I would be the good.
Yeah,
You could be the bad and the ugly.
No. Well, you see, that's typical of you to, to dismiss it and all like that. But I mean, the point is, it's a very important part of the world's history, right? Because this, what happened was the Native American was the greatest ecological tribe, the greatest ecological civilization we've ever had.
What you mean in terms of the way that they used the earth?
They used the earth. For instance, they made their clothes out of bear skins and all this kind of stuff.
Cavemen.
No, I know they did. But what I'm saying is the Native Americans wore like feathers in their head to bond with animals.
No, they didn't.
Yes,
they wore
did.
feathers in their head to denote how important they were in that particular
That's
tribe.
right. But
what do they do with bonding with animals?
Yes, they did, and also to bond with nature. And they
killed.
They looked after society. Now, when the white man came along, right, and started beating them up and putting them on reservations and all that, white man actually destroyed one of the greatest civilizations the world's ever seen, probably the greatest since the Roman Empire, right?
Well, that may
these
be
guys,
true. But I mean,
these
they haven't
guys,
been
for
destroyed,
instance,
have they? The Native Americans have not been destroyed.
They have been
in
destroyed.
fact, they're now having the last laugh because now on the Indian reservations you can gamble. They've got casinos. They're making a fortune.
But a hell of a lot of them suffer from drink problems. They suffer from drug problems. They suffer from mental problems. They have been put down in a massive way, and I think it's an absolute disgrace because cowboys are represented as these guys who ride around on horses, six-shooters, going around shooting people, all this kind of stuff. In fact, most cowboys were scumbags, okay?
And what do you base any of this on?
Well, I based it on research that I've done there. Most cowboys were scumbags who did nothing except herd cows around, right?
Well, that's why they're called cowboys.
Yeah, exactly, that's exactly
Most of them
right.
did not actually shoot people at all. They were actually ranch hands who did a job of work, which was a bit like being a farmer.
Who is Lucian B. Smith? Okay, Lucian B. Smith.
No idea.
He's the guy who invented barbed wire, right, in America. And without barbed wire, there'd have been no cowboys because cowboys can only control cows when they've got barbed wire to put up fences to keep the cows contained. You see what I mean?
But they didn't have them in fields, did they? I mean, they had vast plains in America.
I know they did, but
they would have cattle drives where they would drive them.
And every time they stopped them,
miles.
every time they stopped them every night, they knocked up a barbed wire fence along a perimeter so the cows couldn't go any further because the cows knew that they would tear their skins on the barbed wire. So barbed wire.
Hang on, calm down a second, all right? I don't know why you've suddenly adopted this particular, crusade of yours.
No.
But first of all, of course they had to fence the cattle in because if you don't fence them in, you lose them.
That's what I said.
And they were worth money.
So it was one of the most important developments in the history of the world, the barbed wire, because the barbed wire kept the cows. That started the start of the American country, which is now the wealthiest in the world. You didn't know that, but I do because I've done the research. Now,
I did know America was the wealthiest country in the world.
The Lone Ranger, right? By the way, the great thing about the Lone Ranger, he was so clever with his mask, because if he ever wanted to work undercover, all he had to do was take his mask off, didn't he?
Well, I mean,
because nobody would recognise the Lone Ranger without his mask off.
No, sure, it's one of the worst masks of all time because if you have, that's like somebody wearing just just an eye mask.
Yeah.
I mean, you know exactly who it is.
No. But what I'm saying is,
not like it's Batman.
If he wanted to infiltrate a gang of villains, a gang of bank robbers or something like that they used to have in those days, all he had to do was take his mask off and sort of hang around with him. They wouldn't know he was the Lone Ranger.
That bloke Tonto hanging about with him was a bit of a giveaway.
Well, no, Tonto would have to stay in the background.
I thought the whole point of this new Tonto Lone Ranger movie was that actually it laid bare all of the myths about the Wild West, and it actually made out that the real hero was in fact Tonto, not the Lone Ranger.
Tonto was the Lone Ranger, but it didn't explain well enough how barbaric and uncivilised the cowboy was. For instance, at the start of this Lone Ranger film, have you seen it, by the way?
No.
Well, some guy who's a real ruffian shoots a member of the Texas Rangers and then castrates him in response for the fact that the Texas...
Sounds a bit violent.
It is. The Texas Ranger had caught him previously and jailed him. You see what I mean? So he said, you took a part of my life away, I'm going to take a part of your life away. He then gets the knife out and cuts his trousers. You know what's going to happen next? And all the other cowboys in the gang are all thrown up on the floor because even they thought it was
dreadful.
A bit harsh, yeah. But anyway, the point of the story is all cowboys were scumbags, right? Do you know most of them died?
That's a bit of a generalisation.
No, most of them died of syphilis or gonorrhea by the age of 45. Yeah. Well, I mean, you
did die of that in those days, didn't you?
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is there weren't too many McCarthy and Stone developments around in the Wild West for ageing cowboys because cowboys didn't age.
What's McCarthy and Stone?
You know, they're the people who build all these retirement apartments.
I don't know who they are.
Yes, of course you do. In England
I've never heard of them.
For retired people.
Well, I don't look at retirement homes.
There were no retired cowboys. The other thing,
nobody lived that long in those days.
No, well they didn't. Now they got shot or they died of...
They also gave a lot of disease to the Native Americans.
Of course they
didn't
did. And do you know why they died of syphilis and gonorrhea? Because do you know that
they were having sex with people who had syphilis and gonorrhea.
Well, that's absolutely right.
As a hazard of guess.
But the ratio of men to women was something like 1,000 to 1. Because, of course, all these cattle ranchers went out there, all these cowboys and all that. Very few women went. So the few women who went were sort of in demand, so to speak, you know, to be friendly with men cowboys and all that kind of stuff. So that was terrible. None of them had any teeth, because all their teeth used to fall out really early because they had no nutrition and all that. So they used to go around robbing dead bodies of teeth, and then they would take those teeth out with pliers.
Like a horrible film, this.
Well, no, this wasn't in the film.
Oh.
This is the truth. This is the truth of the matter, right? I mean, I don't think anybody in the film died of gonorrhea or syphilis. I'm just telling you what really happened. You see what I mean?
So, having seen this film, you decided to research the material.
Yeah, well, I knew it already.
Well, so what's the point of all of this, anyway?
Well, the point...
Are you going to make some massive donation to the Native American Fund for Distressed Gentlefolk?
I just want to raise it because I think it is one of those great subjects which goes untalked about because the mighty power of America has overcome. And I mean, for instance, the film The Last of the Mohicans was very close to what the Native American was. And at the start of that film, if you remember, they shoot a stag and then they take it home to cook it and all that. And
that Dances with Wolves, you think of?
And they say a prayer over the stag. Yeah. And a couple of film reviewers mocked this and said, isn't that pathetic? That's exactly what the Native American used to do. He used to say a prayer over, the animal because it was part of nature and they'd killed it and all that kind of stuff, OK? And that's what I think needs enhancing and needs bringing to the forefront.
Well, apparently it's already been made a movie of.
What?
Well, you've just described it.
Yeah, I have, but what I'm saying is...
They've already made a film that tells the truth.
No, not enough people know about it. And I just think... And this is all prompted by me watching the film the other night, The Lone Ranger. It's a dreadful film. I mean,
did you get to the end?
Very, very poor film.
Did you get all the way to the end?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't actually. To be honest, it was just too.
So
poor.
You didn't watch it all the way through?
Well, I watched, but you see, old Tonto was the only decent guy in it because when a lot of these people got shot, Tonto came across them and he dug a grave for each one of them. There's about 6 of them. Whereas what the cowboys used to do is they just used to rob the bodies. They used to pull the teeth out, knock them into a bit of wood, put them in their own mouth.
It's called the Wild West.
Yeah, it was called the Wild West. It wasn't
called the Genteel West, or the West where everybody has great teeth and doesn't die of syphilis.
And for instance, remember. The basis of this civilization also produced great men like Geronimo. Now, Geronimo was the greatest of all the Indians because so many times...
Native Americans.
Yes, Native Americans. Because so many times he tried to protect the lifestyle of the Native American. And so that's why he would not be curtailed, he would not be put onto a reservation, he would not behave himself. He kept breaking out and going and trying to spread the word of the Native American. And all he got was battered to death. Not literally. What are you laughing at?
I've no idea why you're still going on about this.
No, by the
20 minutes of this we've had.
No, by the strike legs, who were the US cavalry, who were made up of ex-cowboys after the Civil War, who couldn't get a job anywhere. So they were one of those brutal and uncivilised armies in the Western world. I just thought you should know these things.
Yeah, well, I'm very grateful.
Right?
Let's talk about the quiz that you took last week.
What about it?
The one that you did very well on.
Oh, on Yorkshire?
On Yorkshire, yeah. You said that you would have done better had you actually been asked some proper questions about Yorkshire.
I did,
for example, about when York Minster was built.
Yeah.
And you told me when you thought York Minster was built, didn't you? Do you remember what date you said?
I can't remember specifically because it was built over a period of 150 years, so it could have been any time within that.
So it wasn't really built on any specific year then?
Well, no, but I mean, it was commissioned on one year and it was finished on another. You see what I mean? Yeah.
All right, let's have a listen to this.
I expected a few more questions about Yorkshire, not people who lived there, frankly.
Well, it's a question. It's a quiz about Yorkshire.
Like, for instance,
We'd actually like to set your own quiz.
In what year was York Minster built? Could have told you all that. Sorry?
What's the answer to that?
1147.
Right.
Could have told you all the...
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
1147, you said?
Yeah.
It wasn't built in 1147.
When was it built?
It was built, as you say, over a course of 150 years.
Yes, right.
It started off at 600 AD.
Yes.
And it was rebuilt several times, but at no time was anything done to it in 1147.
It was.
It wasn't.
It was. You go and look at it now. Do you honestly think that those twin towers of the York Minster have been there since the 5th century?
No, I don't.
You're mad.
The church was damaged in 1069 during William the Conqueror's harrying of the north.
There you go.
There you go. That's not 1147.
Well, it's very close.
The Danes destroyed the church in 1075. Also, not 1147.
And when was it started to? When did they start to rebuild it?
The Gothic style in cathedrals had arrived by the mid-12th century.
Thank you.
However,
and when is that? When is the mid-12th century?
1150.
Yes,
But
thank
that's
you.
not when it was built.
I
That's
don't
not
care.
when it was
I
built.
got the right date.
No, you didn't.
You're nitpicking.
No,
as
I'm
usual.
telling you the truth. The chapter house was begun in the 1260s and completed before 1296. Most of what you see now...
You've just given the date
Most
of
of-
1150,
No,
and
I
I
haven't.
said
No, I
1147.
haven't.
Therefore, I
No.
am almost exactly right. Only 3 years away, 8 centuries ago. That, to me, is pure genius.
That's
okay?
not true.
And when I told you about
when I
Harold
asked you
Wilson,
when was it built, you said 1147.
Yeah.
It was not built in 1147. Therefore, you're wrong.
the start of the reconstruction after the Normans trashed it was 1147. That I can tell you. And when I told you about Harold Wilson, by the way, I forgot to add that Harold Wilson, who was the Prime Minister, you tried to trick me into
I did
finding
not try
out
to trick
he
you at
came
all.
from Huddersfield. Harold Wilson also went to Huddersfield Grammar School, which, when he became Prime Minister, he started a campaign against grammar schools to close them all down, even though he'd had the benefit of going to one, and got to Cambridge University and got a tripos. And a tripos is getting...
That's how you've got a camera on.
It's a first-class honours degree in 3 different subjects. It's almost impossible.
like a PPE?
It's almost impossible for people to do that, but he did because he was such a bright boy. And spoke with a northern accent till the day he died. He didn't smoke a pipe unless he was in public, and that was for effect, you know what I mean? To look like old Uncle Harold, you see what I mean?
No, not really. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. More next. This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Porky Parry is here as well. I hope you've had enough now of talking about the Native Americans.
Well, I only
Got a
wanted to
couple
get
of-
it straight, Mike. That's the thing. You see, you just gloss over issues in the world and, just flippantly toss them aside. I feel I have a responsibility to point these things out.
Well, you may well have a responsibility to point these things out, but there's a couple of messages have come in from you.
Yeah.
This one from our good friend Derek in Pencoed, in
Pencoed.
South Wales. A message for Porky. The Lone Ranger is just a film. He didn't exist, and he claims to be a student of the Wild West. As Del Boy would say, you plonker. And here's one
What?
from David in Clerkenwell. He says, what did Porky's neighbours think about him erecting a teepee and dancing and wailing around a campfire all night? It's an image that I don't really care to think about.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with those
Like I
shorts
would.
on. By the way, I have sent out a picture of you in those shorts on social media.
I don't mind.
Quite a lot of comments coming in on that as well.
Well, these are very expensive shorts, by the
Are
way,
they?
which you didn't point out.
Are
Yes,
they designer
absolutely.
shorts then,
Yes,
are
they
they?
are designer shorts.
By
yeah.
whom?
Well, it doesn't matter by
Well, it
whom.
does
They are
matter. Of course it
designer.
does. Well,
I'm
who made
sorry. I don't know who made
Was
them.
it George at Asda?
No, it wasn't George at Asda, but I got them from a designer shop, didn't I? Which
it?
is where I buy a lot of my clothes. Yeah.
Yeah, was it a clothes designer though?
What do you think it was then? A
Well, I
blanket
don't know.
designer or something?
Well, it looks more like a blanket. Yeah, it looks like a pair of
Yeah.
culottes or something.
I'm not talking to you
Anyway,
about fashion.
what
That's
on
a
earth
waste
were
of
you
time.
doing? What were you
Might
doing
as
on
well
the
talk
sport-
to you in Swahili.
What were you doing on the sports breakfast yesterday morning? You don't normally do it on a Monday.
I was just having a look at the papers because old Johnny Cross would have normally done it.
Yeah.
Our colleague from the Daily Mirror. Johnny's away
He'd
in,
be out with
in
the
Miami.
English.
That's right, with the
Yeah.
England team, and I was very happy to step in. And
what's all this you were tweeting about how well received the national anthem was that you sang? When?
You see, that wasn't my fault. What happened was I was literally talking. There was a story on the back of the Daily Mail yesterday which said Roy will insist on have I
singing
got it
the-
here?
yeah, I know, I saw it,
on his players singing the national anthem and vociferously, and I thought it was a very good thing because I always sing the national anthem when I'm at Wembley. I always stand up.
I remember
whether-
you punched me when we were at Wembley because I wasn't singing it.
Exactly, because if I'm in the press box or whether I'm in a guest suite,
it's a dirge,
or,
though, isn't it?
or
It's a
whether
terrible
whether
dirge.
I'm on the broadcasting gantry, I always stand up. I get mocked by a lot of my colleagues who say, you're not supposed to do that. You're not a spectator. Well, I'm sorry. As far as I'm concerned, I am. I was then asked in the middle of my appearance on the breakfast show if I would give them a rendition. It wasn't my idea. I didn't want to boast about my prowess in singing the national anthem.
Well,
but
we've
they-
heard enough of you singing on
they-
this show.
they-
We know that
they-
it's not very good.
They asked for it, and I was happy to deliver it. And for those who've missed it, maybe you'd like to play it again.
No, I wouldn't like
because,
to play it again,
because
actually.
the listeners to your show did not benefit or are not benefiting.
No, I don't wanna hear it.
in the way that breakfast did.
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, listen to this.
Noble Queen.
I don't want to hear this.
God save
I like this.
the Queen.
I think it was one of my best versions.
Send
Her victorious.
God, there's two Parrys now. What a nightmare.
And glorious.
With three mics.
Long to reign over us. God save the Queen.
That is ghastly.
I thought it was really good.
Absolutely
Actually.
awful.
I'm quite
and
proud of
the
that.
idea of you
proud
accompanying
of that.
yourself, it's the ultimate narcissistic act.
No, it's
you
not.
couldn't be happier now, could you?
No,
You've been
isn't-
able to sing along with yourself.
Isn't that what a lot of pop stars do? Don't they call it double tracking or something like that? They sing.
Well,
on,
they
on
might
top
do,
of it.
but you're not a pop star.
Well,
and
no,
it
I'm
doesn't sound
not.
that good.
But I'm of that sort of quality singing wise. I mean, I thought that was good, and in fact, my mother listened to it. She thought it was excellent.
Really?
Yeah, and she's
How's
my
her hearing?
She's my fiercest critic, believe me. So
Well, Alice, all I know is that,
I-
to be fair to you, it is better than most of the singing you do on TalkSport.
I ain't got a
because,
problem.
You were doing a lot of singing on the show on Friday morning, and to be honest, lots of it was very, very much below par.
I don't think it was. What was I singing on Friday
Well, you
morning?
broke into with a little help from my friends. You sang.
Well, we were talking about Beatles songs, weren't we? And that's
every time there's any song
that's something
that's
I do.
mentioned, you start singing it.
Mr. Brazil, of course, was taking the mickey and saying,
Of
"Well,
course.
why aren't you singing Land of My Fathers?"
Yeah.
Or what's the other one that Welsh sing?
Bread of Heaven.
Bread of Heaven, and How Green Is Thy Valley, or something.
How
is
green
it?
is my valley? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I remember sitting alongside Mr. Brazil at Hampden Park when he was singing Flower of Scotland.
Yeah, we've all heard that.
And, if he thinks that I can't handle my national anthem, then you want to listen to Al trying to sing Flower of Scotland. We'd had a very exciting lunch. We'd been with Rod Stewart.
Yes, I heard about that.
Over lunch, so Al was extra excited. But anyway, he did the best he could. He just hasn't got the sort of voice I've got.
No, of course. Now, didn't you also upset some people from Milton Keynes as well on the breakfast
Well,
show?
I didn't mean to, and I will now publicly apologise to the people of Milton
what did
Keynes.
you say?
Well, what happened was Hank Potts, who normally comes on after I've done my my newspaper review,
Usually with some cutting remark about you.
exactly, highly cutting remark. And the last one I heard him say was something about caring the community
Yeah, I
still
heard that one,
working because Mr. Parry's clearly being looked after.
Yeah, I
and all
thought it
that.
was particularly unkind.
Very insulting,
Yeah.
particularly unkind and all that. So I was told in my earphones that, we needed to wrap up in a minute or two. Hank was coming on.
Yeah.
That's the message I thought I heard.
Right.
No, I'm not sure what I did here, but that's what I thought I heard. So I thought, oh, Hank's coming on, right. And Al had told me sometime previously that Hank hails from Milton Keynes, or if he doesn't, his mother lives there now.
Right.
Which is fine, I'm sure.
Darren Gough lives around Milton Keynes as well.
Does he?
doesn't
Yeah.
Well, he's a great supporter
And
of the MK Dons.
I'm sure Hank's mother is a lovely lady. And so I said, as a bit of an aside, to wind up Hank, I said, Al said, have you ever been to Milton Keynes? Al was deliberately winding me up. I mean, what a leading question. Have you been to Milton Keynes?
Well, no, most people wouldn't normally launch into
No,
an
exactly.
attack on a place, except but you would, though.
Well, most people wouldn't be asked, would they, at that time of the morning, have you ever been to Milton Keynes?
Well, you could just either say yes or no, couldn't you?
Well, I just said, no, I don't go to Milton Keynes. And Al said, oh, where's that then? And I said, well, that's that sort of place you want to go, isn't it? It's not much in Milton Keynes and all that kind of stuff. And so I was sort of being a little bit
You were sucker
unkind to Milton Keynes, but it wasn't to Milton Keynes. So the people of Milton Keynes, I apologise. I was having a direct go at Hank Potts.
Right. And is he from Milton Keynes?
I don't know. Well, he's from Holland originally, isn't he?
Holland?
Yeah.
Is he?
Hank's from Holland.
So,
Yeah.
that's why it's called Hank.
He's called Henk, he's from Holland. He has antecedents in the Netherlands. And when he goes on holiday, he goes to the Caribbean and he goes to the Dutch islands.
Did he go to the Dutch Antilles?
Dutch Antilles. And
He doesn't sound anything like that,
and
Hank
you know,
Potts.
Hank speaks like that. Have you not heard him speak when he speaks?
Well, you're saying when he goes back to Holland he starts talking like that?
No, he speaks like this most of the time.
Because it's like when you go back to Wales, do you speak more Welsh then?
Well, no, I don't, because I don't go back to Wales. But I'll tell you something. Somebody was raising this with me today. Old Nicky Campbell, who's a well-known broadcaster in this country, has been accused of talking in a pronounced Scottish accent when he talks to Scottish people.
Yeah.
Because he's of
A
Scottish...
lot of people do that, actually, don't
He's
they?
of Scottish descent, and like when he's anglicised and he's working in the southeast of England, he becomes... What's that word they use for English?
I don't know. Homogenised?
No, estuary English, is it? Or something
Estuary
like that?
English?
Estuary English or
Well,
Oxford
that's-
English? Oxford
that
English, something like that. And he goes back. Now, I've noticed that when I've been... when I've seen you around Scottish people in Scotland...
You've never seen me in Scotland. You came to Scotland and didn't see me.
I did.
We just talked about this a few weeks ago because I
Yeah.
said to you, do you remember the last time Real Madrid won the Champions League?
Yeah.
The final was in Glasgow and they beat Bayer Leverkusen.
But
and
you have a...
And I was there at Hampden and you went, yeah, so was I.
Yeah.
But you never called me when you were there.
Well, what would I want to call you for? But I mean, you have a pronounced Scottish accent when you talk to Scottish
Not
people.
true.
I've
No.
seen you talk to Scottish
No.
people, and you do. And
I'll tell you the truth, though. I'll tell you what happened when I was a child growing up in London.
Yep.
And I started to speak for the first time.
Yes.
Both of my parents were Scottish, so
Yes.
naturally I developed my speech pattern had a Scottish accent, right? But then when I went to school, in Marylebone in London, I realised that if I had a Scottish accent, people would make fun of me. So I changed it.
No, beat you up, you mean?
Not beat me up, make fun of me.
Yeah.
Because English people are like that. You know,
But
they
I
don't
bet
like
kids at
foreigners
your
coming
school
in.
treated you like a punch bag, didn't they?
No, they didn't
No?
actually.
No?
No, because I was so superiorly intelligent to them that they left me alone because for fear that I would make fun of them horribly and poke sticks at them verbally.
When I was a kid, about 16, whenever I went to an Everton game, my accent changed dramatically.
What, did you sound like Wayne Rooney?
Yeah, a bit like that.
Really?
Yeah, you go over there and say, "All right, lad, how you doing?" and all this kind of stuff, and yeah, come on, Everton, come on. It would just happen because you're in the middle of a fervent crowd. We used to stand in those days.
So you're
right?
actually just making an accent up now?
No. It's the influence of the people around you. I had one mate, right, and this was when we were about 15. I remember his name. His name was Dave Clark. And believe it or not, like the Dave Clark Five, but he wasn't in the Dave Clark Five.
Wasn't he?
No.
Why not?
Well, because he wasn't. He was 15.
It was a different Dave Clark.
It was a different Dave Clark. But he, I don't know where he got his money from. I mean, perhaps his dad had money. But he used to go on the train down to watch Spurs with a couple of mates every Saturday when Spurs were at home. And by Monday morning, he was coming, "Oh, come on, the Spurs," and this is in Chester, right? Yeah, come on,
How
the
bizarre.
Spurs, "Oh, Jimmy Greaves, the greatest footballer in the world," and all this kind of stuff. It was amazing the way, and that would last till about Wednesday.
Right.
And then he'd revert back to a sort of northwest accent, and then he'd go
really
back
odd.
to London again, and it happened all over again. Yeah,
That's really odd. That doesn't happen to most normal people.
it does happen to most people.
Let's have a listen to Henk Potts and his Dutch accent.
I mean, longer term, we still believe that the pound will strengthen against dollar. It's 158 this morning.
158.
The end of 2010, we've got a price target of 175.
Well, that's
Sounds really Welsh, that.
by the way, I've remembered the island that he goes to on holiday.
I said Welsh.
Eh?
The Dutch Antilles you talking about?
No. It's the start of the Beach Boys song. Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I'm gonna take
He
you.
goes to Aruba.
It's Aruba. Yeah, Aruba's the Dutch island, isn't it?
I don't know.
What's the following words of that one? Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I'm going to take you to... What's the next words? Come on, you know the Beach Boys song.
I don't know.
In the Florida Keys.
I don't know. I don't want to hear any more singing.
Yeah. It's a great Beach Boys song.
Like Porky Parry.
And it starts off with Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I'm going to take her to... And then somewhere else, like the Caribbean or something.
No, maybe the Bahamas or something.
The Bahamas, that's
The Bahamas.
it. Yeah.
That's enough singing. He is Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. More coming up next.
Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you. Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama. Key Largo, Montego, baby, why don't we go? Jamaica, off the Florida Keys.
Deary me. Well, as usual, you've got some of the words right.
Be there with
That's enough.
you.
As usual, you've got some of the words right, but all in the wrong order.
But I knew it was Aruba, you see, and I knew that was Hank's territory.
Okay.
He definitely goes on holiday there.
Well,
so
maybe-
you're telling me he's not Dutch, and I'm telling you he goes halfway around the world to go to an island, a Caribbean island, on holiday, and it happens to be a Dutch one.
Well, it happens
so,
to
I mean,
be-
that's the clue, you know?
Well, it happens to be a Caribbean island, which I think is the clue, because
Yeah.
obviously he's got a lot of money and he wants to spend it in a good place.
Well, good for him.
Now, let me tell you about a story that I think we should all be concerned about.
Oh,
and that
yes.
is this bug that we're being told about, which is going to be launched upon us. It's some kind of terror. It's not a sort of cyber attack, basically.
Cyber attack?
which is going to be launched sometime in the next 2 weeks. There are two
When we
kinds
talking
of...
about cyberspace recently?
Probably, yeah. With something we talk about.
Cyberspace.
With something we talk about
Oh, of
from
course,
time to time.
that's why I keep my keys in the tin.
You keep
so
your
I don't
keys
get
in
attacked by
cyberspace.
cyber
Well,
thieves.
exactly.
Yeah.
So now that
Yeah.
you're concerned about all this, you should now be even more concerned
Right.
about your electronic equipment, like your computer at home.
don't tamper with my equipment.
And of course your phone and your tablet and anything else that you've got, because this thing's going to suck your bank details out of it.
Right.
Apparently.
What?
So what are you going to do? What I'm going to ask you is, if you went to all the trouble of putting your keys in a tin,
Yes.
what are you doing to stop this particular cyber threat from attacking you?
I've got no defence against it. I can't. I just don't understand the complexities of computers to be able to do anything about it.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, well, you can buy a program, though, that maybe keeps this stuff out.
And how would I load that program on?
Why would you load it on? Well,
Yeah.
you'd probably get somebody else to do it.
Well,
wouldn't
that's
you?
what I
Get
mean.
your
I'd have
nephew
to,
do it.
I'd have to get somebody else to do it. But I mean, people aren't instantly available to me to try and put in defensive barriers against so-called bugs. But we've had all these scares before. We've had all these scares before that.
Well, there was the Millennium Bug scare, wasn't it?
The what?
The Millennium Bug.
That's right.
that was gonna
Yeah,
come
that's
in
right.
ruin
And
everything.
everything was going to go bust, and it didn't. But I tell you what, Mike, this thing about computers and all that, the world is definitely losing out. I mean, for instance, did you know? I read a piece the other day saying that the new fighter jets, which are eventually it is, hoped are going to be on the deck of the new aircraft carriers we're building. We're building 2 aircraft carriers, right? We're
But
building.
we can't afford to put any planes on.
Can't afford to put any planes on them, but eventually we do get the planes and put them on. One of these aircraft carriers is called the Prince of Wales, and the other one's called something else. But the first one, I think, is going to be the Prince of Wales. I put these together. Now, I read a piece the other day, and I am no expert in this, but this is how dangerous computers are, that the Chinese have already produced aeroplanes full of all the technology which we thought was unique and untouchable in the new European fighter jet, which is going to adorn the decks of our new aircraft carrier.
And these things are about 10 years away, presumably.
And these things are about 10 years away. And that's because the Chinese, it is alleged, are so sophisticated in their computer wizardry that they've managed to hack the details of top secrets from the West and are building aeroplanes years ahead of us being able to build them
tells me
with,
two things.
with the technology in it.
That tells me two
How
things.
about that?
One, if it's true, why is it that they can suddenly hack into this stuff and get the information and build a plane faster than we can actually, go from having the instructions to not building a plane?
Exactly. Well,
and
who
also,
knows?
how about if the Chinese are actually clever enough to come up with this stuff on their own?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, what I'm saying is there ever going to be a time in the future when anything can possibly be secret? The next thing will be, after computers being available to everybody who's clever enough to hack into them, people will hack into your brains, won't they? And get your thoughts. As I'm sitting here now.
Well, they won't be hacking into your brain anytime soon.
No, I'm being serious
There will
now.
be nothing in there worth hacking.
I'm not going to rise to these insults. As I'm sitting here talking to you now, you could very easily have some sort of machine in your pocket which is actually infiltrating my brain, and so if I'm thinking, I don't like this guy, he's talking nonsense, you may, like sometimes you send an email to somebody by mistake.
No,
and
I
yes,
don't do
you
that.
do, and it's the worst thing. For instance, I want to send you an email about our producer Dave, saying, this guy's an overweight, incompetent idiot who, shouldn't be sitting there. But instead of
Isn't that
sending
the one you want to send to him about me?
or vice versa. That's absolutely right. But instead of sending it to you, I mistakenly send it to Dave. And all of a sudden he reads it, he gets upset, and all of a sudden you've got a big problem because these things can happen.
There was a terrible case here in the TalkSport offices. I shouldn't really say who it was that was responsible for it.
Yeah, go on.
But a guy who sent the most grovelling apology to his girlfriend for missing out on something or other that they were supposed to do together, right? And it was really horrendously cringeworthy, and he sent it to the entire office by mistake.
Really?
And so, of course, everybody not only knew that he was a complete wuss, but that he'd upset his girlfriend.
These terrible things can happen. I've noticed with my new phone, right, the one I don't really understand how it works.
Yeah.
And
I'm surprised you don't send more emails to the wrong people more often, to be honest.
The point is, it's got a huge log of messages that come in.
Right.
And then sometimes when you want to reply to them, you think you're replying to the message just come in, but actually, because you've sort of closed your phone down and then opened it up again, you're actually sending it to somebody else. And that's happened to me 2 or 3 times. Fortunately, so far, I haven't sent out anything that's
been nothing sort of difficult.
No.
Or libelous,
and I've had to
potentially.
send an apology saying, awfully sorry, that was supposed to go to so-and-so.
Well, one of the problems of working the hours that we work as well is that, quite often during the course of the day, I'll wake up after a nap of a couple of hours or something like that.
I wouldn't bother going to sleep during the day,
Yeah,
mate.
it's
a mug's game.
Well, if I don't sleep during the day, when I'm supposed to sleep, I don't sleep at night.
Yes, but I mean, you said a nap as though you're saying, another quick hour here or another quick 20 minutes here.
because in the end I don't sleep. In the same. I mean, like at the weekend,
it's no wonder
I had a fantastic. Would you mind? Just let me finish a sentence.
Go on.
I had a really good sleep last night. I actually slept all the way through until about 11 o'clock this morning. Right. Which I hardly ever do, but I slept effectively something like 10 hours. Right.
Good
Now,
God.
I never sleep.
That's not good for you.
I never sleep.
Your brain really closes down. At a long
I
sleep
woke
like
up
that.
actually. I felt a bit like my brain had closed down. I thought this must be what it's like to be Mike Parry.
No.
But anyway,
no. I'm not going to rise to that.
No, don't rise to it. But the point is that when during the day when I'm working, I sleep for maybe 3 or 4 hours at a time. I don't really sleep for longer than that. And I'll wake up and I'll suddenly either respond to a tweet or I'll send a copy back an email to somebody. And there are times when you do hit the wrong button because you're kind of half asleep.
But you see, that's why you appear to look so dozy all the time. Because seriously, if you're having 3 hours here, 4 hours there.
You told me I used to look dozy when we worked during the day.
Well, yeah, maybe you just got a dozy look about you.
That could be it.
Could be, yeah.
That could be it.
But what I'm saying is, you shouldn't do that, mate. You should have a bank of sleep and then forget that and then stay awake until your next bank of sleep. That's the only way to do it. I don't go around, 2 hours here, 1 hour here.
Let's look at the last 24 hours that you've just spent, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is incredibly bad for you. A man who's already, by his own admission, got a dodgy heart.
Dodgy ticker.
In order to get in here to do the paper review, you must have been up at about 3:30.
Yeah, I got up at 3:30, yeah.
Right, so
that's
you
okay.
came in here, you finished work at 7:30.
Yes.
And presumably you did a bit of work afterwards, so you left here about 8.
Yes.
So you got home at what time?
About 9.
About 9. Did you go to bed?
No.
What did you do?
I had a load of work to do at home on the old computer because Monday mornings for me, I'm always picking up messages after the weekend and all that. Then I went out for a walk, as I always do, for an hour and a half.
What about the ducks? Did they get fed?
Well, I couldn't do it this morning because obviously I was in here. But I make sure other people. I'm in the Duck Conservancy.
So when did you
other people
sleep
look after it. Well, I haven't slept between now and then.
So you got up at 3:30 yesterday morning.
Yeah.
And you haven't slept since.
No.
You think that's good for you?
I don't know, but I mean, I've not
Well, I
felt
can tell
like
you it's not good
I've
for
got
you.
to go to sleep. I then after the walk, I'd better lunch out, come home, caught up on some television programmes,
And
which
you're not
I
sleepy?
need. I need to watch to keep up my my general level of knowledge, which is extensive and which people
Well, you had to
praise.
do all that research on the Native Americans.
Which I
that must
did-
have taken all of 3 minutes.
No. I knew all that already.
Oh, you did?
I just had to check out a couple of facts about Geronimo because he was truly a hero. I
Yeah.
mean, a hero
I don't want to talk
of
anymore about
the
Geronimo.
American people, the Native American people, and then
were
I
very
get
well
sorted.
read.
Then I take in a couple of episodes of Coronation Street before I come out tonight, and I'm well up with things.
See, I don't think that's normal. I think that's
Well-
very, very. And now I was reading a piece of the Times yesterday. There's so many people, millions of people, they say now, are sneaking off for a nap during working hours. And many of them actually go in the car and get 40 weeks. They actually be careful
be
about
mad.
that because if you're actually parked on the street
Yeah.
and you're sleeping in the car
Yeah.
driver's position, you can be done for that. You have to sleep in the passenger seat or, in fact, in the back of the car because if the police see you and they deem you to be in control of the vehicle because you're in the car driver's seat, you can be given a ticket for that.
It
and
only
points.
it only applies if the keys are in the ignition.
Well, I'm
if
not
the
sure
keys
about
are
that.
not in the ignition, it doesn't apply.
I'm not sure if
No,
you
I
wouldn't
know
have,
about that.
you-
I know about
if
that.
you wouldn't have a difficult police officer who would say that you were still technically in charge of the
How
vehicle.
can you be in charge of a vehicle if the engine's switched off and the keys are not in the ignition?
Well, and you're asleep.
I mean, unless you're an idiot and you've left the handbrake off and the car's rolling down
Well,
a hill while you're asleep
The point
in
is
it,
that if you're
you
in
know,
the
which
ca-
would be a
if-
pretty stupid
well,
thing
that
to
would be
do.
a stupid thing to do. But if you're sitting there in the driver's seat, then you are in charge of the vehicle. But let's not worry about that.
Right.
What is now being said is that a report has come out which says that we should have actually a national nap time and a national nap week, and people should actually be napping more because it's very good for them.
This is rubbish.
So it's completely against what you just said about me.
Why do you think the economies of countries that border the Mediterranean are slower than the economies of countries in Northern Europe?
I've no idea.
Because they have siestas. Now, these people
Well,
who
yeah,
have
but
siestas...
that's not a valid argument.
No, it is a valid argument. When you go to places like Spain and Portugal and all that, you see people sitting on pavement, slumped against the wall with a big hat over their head, and they're asleep for an hour and a half.
You should be watching Westerns again.
No, I mean,
That's
watching
what happens
Westerns.
in Westerns.
No, well, that's what happens in Mediterranean countries. You see it happen all the time.
Rubbish. That's absolutely
No,
rubbish.
it's not. I see it all the time.
I go to Mediterranean countries, as you rather
Yeah.
insultingly call them, quite a lot, okay?
Well, what would you call them if they're on the Mediterranean then? Baltic countries.
Well, would you call Spain a Mediterranean
Atlantic
country?
Of course you would call Spain a Mediterranean country. Its coastline is in the Mediterranean,
It's
you fool.
also on the Atlantic.
Yeah, OK, but a bit... No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
The Northern
That's
Atlantic.
Portugal. That's Portugal.
But where does Portugal stop?
Portugal stops up near... What's the name of that
Northern
port?
Spain. Bilbao, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, there is a bit of it in the
Yeah.
Atlantic.
Oh, there
yeah.
is.
But I'm talking
Oh, right,
about
okay.
I'm talking
Just
about
checking.
southern Spain, you fool, and I'm talking about southern
Yeah, but
France.
why would you call it a Mediterranean country just because part of its coastline is on the Mediterranean?
Because most of it is in the Mediterranean. Where do you think Benidorm is?
Benidorm, I've never been there.
Benidorm is in the Mediterranean, okay?
Yeah.
Where do you think
It's on
Malaga
the
is?
Mediterranean, technically.
Where do you think Barcelona is? Hey? They're all in the
Barcelona's not on
Mediterranean.
the coast.
Barcelona's not on the coast, but it's very close to the
Yeah,
coast.
right.
And it's certainly in the Mediterranean. And what I'm saying is, look, you're mad to deny that they have siestas in these countries, because if you go out shopping at lunchtime in Mediterranean countries, the shops are often closed
Yeah.
because the people
But then
running
they
them...
reopen.
The people, yes, they do, but the people running them are upstairs kipping, sleeping,
Yeah.
not applying themselves to their work and to their jobs.
Well, yeah,
And that's
because-
why the economies, seriously, that's why the economies
But why do you think-
of these countries are slower than the economies of countries in Northern Europe.
Really? How do you explain the financial crash in Iceland then?
The financial crash in Iceland was down to the fact that the
Not to do
banking
with the fact that
system...
they were having a siesta.
No, they don't have
No.
siestas in Iceland. I go there a lot, and I can tell you they don't. The banking system was being very badly run. It was influenced by the greed factor, which
Yeah.
had surrounded
Not like in this country.
the Western world.
Thank goodness.
Well, of course it happened in this country as well. But what I'm saying is, for many, many years, the pace of growth in countries bordering the Mediterranean, they are qualified, so you don't call them Mediterranean countries, has been slower because the populations of these countries are asleep for half the day. And if you're asleep for half the day, you can't be productively
France?
improving the economy. Well, it happens in the south of France as well. Happens in the south of
They
France
don't
as
have
well.
siestas in France
How do you know?
because I've been there.
Okay, and are you telling me in the whole of the Mediterranean coast of France nobody has a siesta?
No.
I
They
contest
don't.
that.
It's a cultural thing
I-
that they do in Spain. They don't do it in Italy either, actually.
They do it in Italy,
No,
they
they
do it
don't.
in Spain, they do it in Portugal. I know they do it in
Where
Portugal.
do you think siesta comes from?
Siesta is a Spanish word.
Yes.
Okay.
So they do it in Spain.
And they do it in other countries. Well, they do it in
don't.
Greece. They do it in Greece. I've seen it happen in Greece.
What's Greek for siesta?
I've seen it happen in Libya, right, which is a Mediterranean country.
Okay.
It's a Mediterranean country,
Okay.
Libya.
And what's the Libyan
I've
word
seen
for
it happen
siesta?
in Morocco,
Have you?
right? In Morocco, where they have siestas.
When was the last time you were in Morocco?
Sorry?
When was the last time you were in Morocco?
Well, it was quite a few years ago, but I mean, they haven't changed their cultural identity, have they? They still go to sleep during the day.
I'll look forward to giving you a quiz on siestas.
All right, you can give me a question on your life, but I mean, for you to deny that the Mediterranean culture of siestarism is not
Siestarism?
is not still prevalent is frankly
Well, it's always been prevalent.
ignorant.
It's always been prevalent in
ignorance.
Spain, but it's good because you go to Spain, you can have dinner at 12 o'clock at night, and you stay up much later. It's a much more convivial atmosphere. There's nobody falling about drunk. There's nobody obese. There's nobody
People
eating
staggering around at
hamburgers.
3 o'clock in the morning. That's not good.
Yeah, it's very
because
good.
then when you get up in the following morning, you're not being productive and helping the economy of the country. Why do you think Spain's in such a bad nick economy-wise? Because they built all these flats that nobody wants to live in. They don't have any scaffolding. They have to use wooden trees and all this kind of stuff. No, it's true. And
I can't take any more of this.
as a
Trees.
result, the economy has been slow.
Right. With more economic analysis from Mike Parry coming up on Thursday night, we'll have a look at what's going on in Brazil and why it is that the jungle is the best place to buy a new house.